You think you know America. You've driven across its highways, wandered through its cities, maybe even walked through some old, empty towns. But there are places in this country that even locals avoid. Tonight, you're about to hear 10 of the most disturbing real horror stories from across the United States. These aren't tales spun for thrills. These are the kind of stories you hear whispered in the dark. Stories no one wants to tell, because once you do, there's no turning back. From the back roads of Kentucky to abandoned farms in Texas, from empty motels in the middle of nowhere to forests where the trees seem to watch you, these places are real. And the fear that lives in them, it's very real too. So settle in, because the stories you're about to hear are not meant to entertain. They are meant to unsettle. Are you ready? My phone buzzes and a notification lights up the screen. A post from Jake, a shirtless selfie with a caption that twists my gut. Broken, but still fighting. Comments flood in. Friends, strangers, all offering sympathy. My hands shake. It's a lie. I'd met Jake on Tinder, a guy 4 years older, handsome, charming, with a chiseled body from hours at the gym. He'd swept me off my feet, but now, months later, I see the truth. He's a master manipulator using social media to pull strings, and I'm still tangled in his web. Rewind to last spring. I'm 22, heartbroken after a 2-year relationship, alone in a new city. Tinder was my escape, a way to drown the pain. Jake's profile stood out, bad boy vibes with a sweet smile. After days of chatting, he came over and I was hooked, drawn to his intensity. Now that post glares at me, a reminder of how deep I fell. We started hanging out and the chemistry was electric. The first time we slept together, it was like nothing I'd ever felt. Jake knew how to make me feel special. His words like honey, his touch addictive. But soon his charm turned clingy. He'd beg me to come over, promising massages, romantic dinners, anything to get me there. If I said I was tired, he'd sulk, sending a barrage of texts, each one sharper, guilting me into giving in. I ignored the red flags, blinded by his attention, craving the rush he gave me. My friends warned me, but I brushed them off, thinking they didn't get it. Jake's apartment became our world. A haze of late nights and whispered promises. But I started noticing cracks. His stories didn't add up. He'd mention exes, then claim they never existed. His phone buzzed constantly, but he'd hide the screen, laughing it off. One night I saw a text flash. "You free tonight?" From a name I didn't know. My stomach twisted, but he kissed me and I let it go. Then came the social media posts. Vague, dramatic, always painting him as the victim. "Betrayed again," he'd write, and his followers ate it up, showering him with pity. I'd ask what happened, and he'd dodge, saying, "Just life." I felt like I was losing my grip, caught in his orbit, unable to break free. The posts grew bolder, each one a jab at me. "Some people don't know loyalty," he'd write, and I'd wonder if it was my fault. My confidence crumbled. My nights spent scrolling his page, dissecting every word. Friends noticed I was distant, my laughter forced. Jake's manipulation wasn't just in person. It was digital, public, a performance for sympathy that kept me tethered. I needed to know, was I the only one? Or was Jake playing this game with others, weaving a web of lies I couldn't see? The truth was closer than I thought, and it would shatter everything I believed about him, and myself. I'm glued to my phone, Jake's latest post burning my eyes. A cryptic quote about trust being a lie, with dozens of hearts and sad emojis. My chest tightens. He'd shower me with love through texts, calling me special, saying I made him feel alive. But those words were a trap, designed to keep me close while he played the victim online. When I didn't have time to meet, he'd get angry, flooding my phone with pleas, his tone shifting from sweet to sharp. I'd cave, driving to his place, ignoring the unease gnawing at me. Now I see it. Every post, every text was a calculated move to control me, and I'm not sure how to break free. Jake's manipulation grew bolder. He'd call late, voice low, claiming he needed me, that I was the only one who understood him. If I hesitated, he'd hint at some vague crisis, making me feel guilty for saying no. One night I found a woman's scarf in his apartment tucked under a couch cushion. "My sister's," he said, but his eyes darted away. I wanted to believe him, but doubt crept in. His social media told a different story. Photos with girls I didn't know, captions dripping with woe. People come and go, but the pain stays. His followers lapped it up, but I felt like a pawn in his game. My emotions twisted to serve his narrative. I started digging, scrolling through his old posts, finding patterns. He'd tag friends in sob stories, then delete them when they got too much attention. I noticed mutual friends liking his posts, people I'd met at his parties, their comments oddly rehearsed. "Stay strong, man." Were they in on it? My friend Sarah warned me. "He's got a reputation, Emma. He does this to everyone." I brushed her off, but her words stuck. Then, a message popped up from a stranger, Lily, who'd seen me tagged in Jake's story. "He's not who you think," she wrote. "Check his DMs." My heart raced. Was Lily another victim or just bait in his trap? I confronted Jake, texting him about the scarf, the posts. He replied instantly, all charm. "You're overthinking, babe. I'm just hurting." But his next post was a dagger. "Some people see betrayal where there's only love." My phone blew up with notifications, friends asking if I was okay, assuming I'd hurt him. I felt exposed. Humiliated, my life a prop in his public pity party. I blocked him, but he used fake accounts, his messages creeping through. "You're making a mistake." My confidence crumbled, sleep replaced by nightmares of his face, his voice. I needed proof, something to expose him, to free myself from his grip. Lily's message was my lifeline. I replied, asking for details, and she sent screenshots. Jake's DMs to her, identical to mine. Same promises, same guilt trips. My blood boiled. He wasn't just manipulating me, he was running a playbook, targeting multiple women, feeding off our sympathy. But what was his endgame? Control, attention, or something darker? I had to find out, even if it meant facing him one last time. The truth was out there, hidden in his lies, and I wasn't letting him win. Lily's screenshots are a gut punch. Jake's words to her mirror the ones he sent me, down to the pet names. My hands tremble as I scroll, each message a shard of his deception. He's not just a player, he's a predator, weaving lies to trap women in his emotional net. I unblock him, watching his stories, each one a new sob story. Lost someone I cared about today. The comments pour in, but I see, through the act, he's thriving on the attention, and I'm done being his puppet. I need to confront him, to expose the truth. But first, I need more evidence to protect myself and others. I meet Lily at a coffee shop, her eyes wary but kind. She's been through it too, drawn in by Jake's charm, then discarded when she questioned his lies. "He's got a pattern," she says, showing me more DMs from other women, all eerily similar. He targets vulnerable girls, feeds on their empathy. My stomach churns. How many are out there still caught in his web? Lily mentions a friend, Mia, who dated Jake last year. She found something in his apartment, Lily whispers. Photos, notes, like a trophy collection. My blood runs cold. Was that what the scarf was? A keepsake? I dig deeper, contacting Mia through Instagram. She's hesitant but agrees to talk. Over the phone, she describes finding a box under Jake's bed, Polaroids of women, some with names and dates, others with cruel captions. Too clingy, not worth it. My heart races. Was I in that box? Mia left him after that, but Jake harassed her online, posting lies to ruin her reputation. Be careful, she warns. He doesn't let go easily. I feel the walls closing in, his shadow looming even from miles away. I check his latest post, a photo of a broken heart emoji captioned, "Some people destroy what they can't have." Is that aimed at me? I screenshot everything, DMs, posts, Mia's story, building a case to expose him. But Jake senses I'm pulling away. His texts turn desperate, then menacing. "You'll regret this, Emma." I block him again, but he uses a friend's account, his words dripping with fake remorse. I just want to talk. My apartment feels like a cage, every notification a jolt of fear. I change my locks, tell Sarah to keep an eye out. Then a new post appears, Jake, bruised, claiming he was attacked by someone he trusted. The comments explode, and I know it's a lie, but it's working. People are turning against me, believing I'm the villain. I can't let him win. I reach out to a local women's group, sharing my evidence. They connect me with others who've faced similar manipulation, their stories mirroring mine. We form a plan. Go public, expose Jake's playbook, warn others. But confronting him means risking his wrath, his lies spreading further. I'm scared, but I'm not alone anymore. Lily, Mia, and the others are with me, and together, we're stronger than his games. The question burns. Can we stop him before he traps someone else, or will his web catch us all again? I sit across from Jake in a crowded cafe, my phone recording. Lily's screenshots in my pocket. His smile is all charm, but his eyes are cold, calculating. "Missed you, Emma," he says, leaning close. I force a smile, my heart pounding. This is it, the moment to expose him. The women's group helped me prepare, their stories fueling my courage. I've seen his lies, his box of trophies, his fake bruises. He thinks he's in control, but I'm done playing his game. I need him to slip, to admit something on tape, to protect others from his web. I bring up his posts, keeping my tone light. "You've been posting a lot about betrayal," I say. He shrugs, sipping his coffee. "Just venting, you know how it is." But his jaw tightens, and I press harder. "What about the scarf in your apartment, or the photos?" His smile falters. A crack in his mask. "You're paranoid," he snaps, but his voice wavers. I pull out my phone, showing Lily's DMs, his own words staring back at him. "Explain this," I demand. His face darkens, and for a moment I see the real Jake. Angry, cornered, dangerous. He leans forward, voice low. "You're making a big mistake, Emma. People believe me, not you." My stomach twists, but I hold my ground, the recorder catching every word. "I know about Mia, the box, the other women," I say. His eyes widen, then narrow. "You've been busy," he hisses, grabbing my wrist. The cafe noise fades, my focus locked on him. I yank my hand free, standing. "This ends now, Jake. I'm not your victim anymore." His smirk returns, chilling. "We'll see about that." That night, he posts again. A photo of a shattered mirror captioned, "Some people break everything they touch." My phone explodes with messages, friends, strangers, accusing me of hurting him. I expected this, but it stings. I upload our evidence to a group page, detailing his manipulation, backed by Lily, Mia, and others. The post spreads, women sharing similar stories, a flood of truth drowning his lies. Jake's followers drop, his fake accounts exposed, but he doesn't stop. A new message arrives from an unknown number. You'll pay for this. My blood runs cold. Is he watching me? I move in with Sarah, my apartment no longer safe. The women's group connects me with a counselor who helps me see the scars Jake left. Not physical, but deep, emotional. I'm healing, but his shadow lingers. I check his profile one last time. He's gone silent, his account private. Did we stop him, or is he just waiting, plotting his next move? I'm stronger now, but the fear remains. A whisper in the dark. I wonder, how many others are still out there, caught in his web, unaware of the predator behind the charm? I wake to a quiet phone, no notifications from Jake. His silence is unnerving, a calm before a storm I can't predict. I realized I'd been too trusting, lulled by his charm. But this experience changed me. I still crave connection, but now I'm cautious, my heart guarded. I'm staying with Sarah, rebuilding my life, but the scars remain. Doubt, fear, the weight of his lies. The women's group keeps me grounded. Their story's a reminder I'm not alone. We've exposed Jake, our post reaching thousands, warning others of his tactics, but I wonder, is he really gone? Or just hiding, waiting for his next target? I meet with the counselor weekly, unpacking the manipulation, learning to trust myself again. She calls Jake a digital narcissist, someone who feeds on control, using social media as a weapon. I see it now, his posts, his texts, all crafted to bind me to him. I check the group page, reading new stories from women who escaped similar, and their strength fueling mine. But Jake's last message, "You'll pay for this," haunts me. I've changed my number, locked my accounts, but the fear lingers. A shadow in every notification. One day, Sarah shows me a news article. A man arrested for cyberstalking. His tactics eerily like Jake's. It's not him, but it's close. A reminder of how common this is. I think of the Polaroids, the scarf. The women will never know. Did we save someone by going public, or is Jake still out there spinning his web? I post a final message to the group, thanking them, vowing to keep fighting. The responses flood in, a chorus of resilience, and I feel a spark of hope. This isn't just my story. It's a warning etched in my soul. Trust your instincts. They see through the charm. Social media is a stage, but not every actor is honest. Jake taught me to question, to dig, to stand up. I'm stronger now, but I'll never forget those women in his box. Their face is a call to keep going, to protect others from predators like him. I'm healing, but the road is long, and I'm not naive anymore. A question lingers, gnawing at me in the dark. Is Jake still out there, his smile luring someone new? Are there others, posting lies, collecting trophies, thriving on pain? I escaped, but the world is vast and digital webs are everywhere. How many are caught tonight, unaware of the lies binding them? Will you scroll past the next sob story, or pause, wondering who's pulling the strings? It was 2 a.m. when my phone buzzed, a single message lighting up the screen. "I need you, Lily. Please don't leave me like everyone else." My heart sank, a familiar guilt twisting in my gut. The sender was Ethan, a guy I'd met online, whose charm had once felt like a lifeline after my breakup. But now his words were a cage, pulling me deeper into a game I didn't understand. Every text, every call was a hook, reeling me in. And the worst part? I didn't see it coming, not until his lies unraveled, exposing a manipulator who thrived on my pain. This is the story of how I fell into Ethan's web, and how I clawed my way out. My name is Lily, a 22-year-old trying to rebuild after a messy breakup. I had just gotten out of a 2-year-long relationship, living in the city I moved to for my then boyfriend. After he left, I felt lonely and heartbroken. I was stuck in our old apartment, the walls echoing with memories I wanted to forget. I downloaded Tinder to chat to guys as a way of coping with the breakup. That's when I matched with Ethan. He was about 4 years older than me, extremely handsome and charming. His profile was a dream: gym selfies, witty bio, a smile that promised better days. We clicked instantly, texting for hours about music, movies, our shared love for late-night drives. He seemed perfect. Too perfect, looking back. Our first date was electric. He came over to my house and I was immediately attracted to him. He was a bad boy type, the kind I usually fall for, but he was also very sweet in the way that he talked. To me, he brought me coffee, complimented my laugh, and listened as I poured out my heartbreak. He kept complimenting me and doing sweet stuff to me. By the end of the night, I was smitten, caught in his orbit. But there were red flags I ignored. He'd check his phone constantly, his eyes darting to the screen mid-conversation. When I asked about his day, he'd dodge, turning the focus back to me. "You're so easy to talk to, Lily," he'd say, and I'd melt, oblivious to the manipulation brewing beneath his charm. The first sign of trouble came a week later. Ethan texted me at midnight, his words frantic. "I'm having a rough night, can you come over?" I was exhausted, but his vulnerability tugged at me. I drove across town only to find him calm, sipping a beer, acting like nothing was wrong. "Just needed to see you," he said, pulling me into a hug. I brushed it off, flattered by his need for me. But those late-night pleas became a pattern. He would keep asking me to hang out pretty much every day, begging me to come over because he missed me. When I told him that I was too tired, he would bribe me with stuff like saying that he would give me massages, dinner, romantic things. I didn't see it then, but he was testing my boundaries, seeing how far he could push. Ethan's sweetness was a mask. He'd shower me with affection one moment, then turn cold if I didn't meet his demands. He didn't like it when I told him no. He would sometimes get angry, send me a bunch of messages just pleading for me to come over. Once, when I said I had work early, he texted, "Wow, guess I'm not important to you." The guilt was suffocating. I'd apologize, rearrange my schedule, anything to keep him happy. Looking back, I see how he weaponized my empathy, turning my kindness into a tool for control. But at the time, I was too deep in his spell, too desperate for connection to question his motives. By the second month, I was hooked and trapped. Ethan had become my world, his texts the rhythm of my day. But something felt off. Friends noticed. I was distant, always glued to my phone, canceling plans to appease him. "You okay, Lily?" my best friend Mia asked. I brushed it off, but her words lingered. Why was I so consumed by someone I barely knew? And why did every interaction with Ethan leave me drained, like I was running on fumes? The answer was coming. But it would take a lie so bold, so cruel to rip the veil off his deception. Ethan's grip tightened with every passing week. His texts were a constant hum, a mix of flattery and neediness that kept me tethered. "You're the only one who gets me, Lily," he'd write, followed by a heart emoji. I'd smile, ignoring the unease in my chest, but his demands grew relentless. After every time that I'd been to his house, he would shower me with love, via messages. He was so romantic, saying that I made him feel so amazing, that there was something special about me, and that he loved being with me. He would often shower me with compliments, but then get angry when I said that I didn't have time to hang out. It was a cycle: adoration, manipulation, guilt, repeat. And I was too caught in his web to see it. He started using social media to amplify his control. Ethan's Instagram was a curated masterpiece. Gym photos, sunset shots, cryptic captions about loyalty and real love. He'd tag me in stories, post selfies of us with hashtags like my soulmate, my followers 8, it up flooding my DMs with, you guys are so cute. But it wasn't cute, it was calculated. Every post was a chain tying me to him publicly, making it harder to pull away. When I didn't like his posts fast enough, he'd text, "Guess you're too busy." For me, the accusation stung, and I'd scramble to prove my loyalty, unaware I was playing his game. The manipulation deepened during our hangouts. At some point, I was at his house. He got a phone call from someone. After he hung up, he seemed off, distant. When I asked what was wrong, he sighed. "Just family drama. You wouldn't understand." I pressed, but he shut down, leaving me to fill the silence with apologies for prying. Later, I found out he'd been texting another girl during that call, spinning the same sob story he'd fed me. But at the time, I bought his act, my heart aching for the pain he wouldn't share. Ethan was a master at playing the victim, and I was his willing audience. One night, I hit my breaking point. I'd had a brutal day at work, barely slept, and told Ethan I needed a night to myself. His response was a flood of texts. "I'm falling apart, Lily. I need you. Please." I stared at my phone, torn between exhaustion and guilt. Against my better judgment, I drove to his place. He greeted me with a grin, no trace of distress, and handed me a glass of wine. "You're the best," he said, as if I hadn't just dragged myself across town at 1 a.m. I felt used, but I stayed, too afraid of losing him to walk away. My friends started sounding alarms. Mia pulled me aside at a coffee shop, her voice firm. "Lily, he's controlling you. You're not yourself anymore." I defended him, citing his sweet gestures, his vulnerability. But her words planted a seed. I started noticing how Ethan never asked about my life, my dreams. Conversations were always about him, his struggles, his needs. When I tried to share my own stress, he'd pivot. "Yeah, but you're strong, Lily. I'm the one who's a mess." It was subtle, but it was there. A slow erosion of my identity, molding me into his emotional crutch. The tipping point was brewing, though I didn't know it yet. Ethan's lies were about to escalate. A stunt so audacious it would force me to see him for what he was. I'd spent months dancing to his tune, but the music was about to stop. And when it did, I'd have to decide. Stay in his web or cut myself free, no matter the cost. The lie came on a Tuesday, disguised as a cry for help. I woke to a notification. Ethan had posted a photo on Instagram, a bandaged wrist, blood seeping. Through captioned, "Sometimes it's too much." My stomach dropped. I called him, my hands shaking, but he didn't answer. His DMs were flooded with messages. "Stay strong, man. You're not alone." Friends, strangers, even my own contacts were pouring out sympathy. I texted him frantically, begging him to respond. Hours later, he replied, "I'm okay, Lily. Just needed to vent." Relief washed over me, but something felt wrong. Why hadn't he called me first? And why did that photo look staged? He posted photos and videos captioned "mine" on his social media. That was Ethan's signature move, claiming ownership. But this was different. He registered a photo of himself being injured and got a bunch of motivational comments, even though he was the one at fault. The comments kept coming, people praising his bravery for sharing his pain. I scrolled through, my unease growing. Then I saw it. A comment from a mutual friend, Sarah. "Wait, isn't that the same bandage from your Halloween costume?" My blood ran cold. I zoomed in on the photo. The blood was too bright, too uniform, like stage makeup. The bandage was pristine, no wrinkles or wear. It was fake. All of it. I confronted Ethan that night at his apartment. "What's with the photo?" I asked, keeping my tone calm. He shrugged, avoiding my eyes. "Just expressing myself, Lily." "Why do you care?" His deflection was a red flag. I pressed harder, showing him Sarah's comment. His face hardened, and for the first time I saw anger. Real anger. "You're overreacting," he snapped. "Why can't you just support me?" But I wasn't buying it. I dug deeper, scrolling through his old posts, finding inconsistencies, sob stories that didn't add up, photos recycled from months ago. Ethan wasn't hurting. He was orchestrating a performance, and I was his star pawn. The truth hit like a freight train. Ethan thrived on attention, on manipulating others' emotions to feed his ego. He was the one who caused the error, yet he played the victim to gain sympathy. I remembered the late-night texts, the crises that vanished when I showed up. He'd been playing me from the start, using my empathy to keep me close while he spun his web for the world to see. The Instagram post wasn't a cry for help. It was a power move, a way to tighten his grip on me and his audience. And it worked. Until it didn't. I spent that night replaying every moment, every text, every lie. How had I missed it? The guilt was crushing, but it was mixed with rage. Ethan had stolen months of my life, twisted my kindness into a weapon. I wanted to scream, to call him out publicly, but I knew he'd spin it, paint me as the villain. Instead, I started gathering evidence, screenshots of his texts, his posts, the fake injury photo. If I was going to break free, I needed proof, not just for me, but to protect others from his lies. The realization was a spark, igniting a fire I hadn't felt in months. I wasn't just a victim of his manipulation. I was a survivor, and I was done playing his game. But confronting Ethan wouldn't be easy. He was a master at turning the tables, and I had to be ready for his next move. The battle was coming, and I'd need every ounce of strength to face him. Confronting Ethan was like stepping into a lion's den. I knew he'd fight back, twist my words, make me doubt myself. But I was done being his puppet. I met him at a coffee shop, neutral ground, my phone loaded with screenshots. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steady despite the knot in my stomach. He leaned back, smirking, like he'd already won. "What's this about, Lily? You're acting weird." I laid it out. The fake injury, the lies, the manipulation. His smirk faded, replaced by a cold, calculating stare. "You're blowing this out of proportion," he said. "I thought you cared about me." I didn't back down. I showed him the screenshots, each one a nail in his facade. He got angry when I said that I didn't have time to hang out. But this was different. His voice rose, accusing me of betraying him, of being just like everyone else. But I saw through it. His anger was a mask for panic. He was losing control. "You used me, Ethan," I said. "You used everyone. I'm done." For the first time, he had no comeback. I walked out, my heart pounding, feeling lighter than I had in months. But Ethan didn't let go easily. He sent a bunch of messages pleading for me to come over, saying I made him feel amazing, but I didn't respond. He flooded my inbox with apologies, then threats, then more sob stories. "I'm sorry, Lily. I'm a mess without you." I blocked his number, but he switched to social media, posting vague rants about fake friends and betrayal. His followers ate it up, some even DMing me to give him a chance. It was infuriating, but it showed me how deep his manipulation ran. He wasn't just controlling me, he was controlling a narrative, and I'd been a prop in his story. I confided in Mia, who helped me see the bigger picture. "He's a narcissist, Lily," she said. "He needs attention to survive. You took that away and he's scrambling." She was right. Ethan's power came from his ability to manipulate emotions, but I was no longer his audience. I unfollowed him, locked down my accounts, and warned mutual friends about his tactics. Some believed me, others didn't. That hurt, but I couldn't save everyone. I could only save myself. The aftermath was messy. Ethan's posts grew darker, more desperate, but his influence waned as people started questioning his stories. Sarah, the friend who'd called out the fake bandage, reached out, apologizing for not seeing it sooner. We bonded over our shared experience, and she became a lifeline, reminding me I wasn't alone. I started reconnecting with friends, rebuilding the life Ethan had isolated me from. It wasn't easy. Guilt and self-doubt lingered, but every step forward was a victory. I also took a hard look at myself. Why had I fallen for Ethan's lies? My breakup had left me vulnerable, desperate for validation, and he'd exploited that. I started journaling, digging into my patterns, learning to set boundaries. Therapy wasn't an option financially, but I found online resources, podcasts about emotional manipulation, and books on self-worth. Knowledge became my armor, protecting me from future Ethans. Ethan's web was gone, but its threads lingered. I'd see his name in a mutual friend's story and feel a pang of fear. I'd catch myself second-guessing my instincts, wondering if I'd been too harsh. But those moments passed. I was stronger now, armed with the truth. I wasn't his victim. I was his reckoning. He played the victim to gain sympathy, but in the end, his lies caught up with him. His followers dwindled, his posts ignored. He'd built a house of cards and I'd blown it down. I'm 23 now, a year wiser and a lifetime stronger. I've rebuilt my life piece by piece. I'm closer to my friends, more confident in my career, and fiercely protective of my peace. I still think about how he caused the error, yet got sympathy for it. That injustice fuels me to speak out, to warn others about manipulators like Ethan. I share my story on forums, in group chats, hoping to save someone else from the same trap. The response has been overwhelming. Messages from strangers who saw themselves in my words, who found the courage to break free. The biggest lesson, trust your gut. If something feels off, it probably is. Ethan's charm was a mirage, hiding. A need for control. I learned to spot the signs, love bombing, guilt tripping, playing the victim. I'm not perfect, but I'm aware, and that's power. I also learned to forgive myself. I wasn't weak for falling for him. I was human, searching for connection in a lonely moment. That compassion for myself and others is my greatest strength. To anyone caught in a web like Ethan's, you are enough. You don't owe anyone your pain, your time, your heart. Cut the threads, even if it hurts. Reach out to friends, family, even strangers online. There's a world of people ready to lift you up. And when you break free, you'll find something incredible. Yourself stronger than you ever knew. This story isn't just about Ethan. It's about every manipulator who thrives on lies, and every survivor who dares to fight back. I'm not defined by the months I spent in his grip. I'm defined by what I did after, by the life I built, the people I helped, the truth I claimed. Ethan thought he could control me. He was wrong. And if you're out there, facing your own, Ethan, know this. You can break free, you will rise, and your story will be one of triumph. The first night in that old house, I woke up to eyes staring at me from the dark. Not human eyes, too bright, too wild, glowing like embers in the forest below our hill. My name's Emma, and my family moved into a crumbling Victorian house. In the middle of nowhere, Maine, hoping for a fresh start. But those eyes in the woods watching us from a forest lower than our property weren't part of the dream. They were real and they weren't friendly. I told my parents, but they laughed it off. Stress, they said, or maybe a deer. I knew better. Those eyes didn't blink, didn't move, just stared, like they were sizing me up. And every night since, they've been there, waiting. I'm not crazy. Something's out there, and it's not letting us go. We'd left the city after Dad lost his job chasing a cheap fixer-upper Mom found online. The house was a steal, 3 stories, creaking floors, and windows that rattled in the wind. It sat on a hill overlooking a dense forest, the kind where light barely reached the ground. The realtor warned us about the isolation, but Mom saw charm. I saw trouble. The first day, I found a rusted lockbox in the attic, sealed tight, with scratches like someone had tried to claw it open. Dad said it was junk, but I kept it, feeling its weight like a secret. That night, I saw the eyes, 2 pinpricks of light, the trees unblinking, locked on our house. I froze, my breath fogging the window, too scared to scream. They vanished when I blinked, but the chill stayed. Mom and Dad didn't believe me, but my little brother Liam did. He's 9, the kind of kid who notices everything. I heard something last night, he whispered the next morning, his face pale. Like footsteps, but heavy, in the woods. I told him to keep it quiet. Mom was already stressed, and Dad was burying himself in repairs. But Liam's words stuck. The forest wasn't just trees. It was alive, watching us. I started keeping a journal, noting every time I saw those eyes, every strange sound. By the 3rd night, I wasn't sleeping. The eyes were closer now, higher in the trees, like whatever it was had climbed to get a better look. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was an animal, a coyote, a bobcat. But animals don't stare like that, don't hold your gaze like they know you. I checked online, searching for reports of wildlife near our town. Nothing matched. Instead, I found a forum post about our house, buried in a thread about local legends. Don't stay there, it read. The woods see everything. No details, just a warning and a username. Lost Hiker 91. I messaged them, but the account was dead. My gut twisted. What did the woods see? And why us? The unease grew, a constant weight in that house. I started noticing things. Footprints in the mud near the forest's edge. Too big for a person, too deep for an animal. The lockbox in the attic hummed sometimes. A low vibration I could feel in my bones. Liam swore he saw a shadow move across his window, too tall to be Dad. I wanted to tell Mom, but she was unraveling, snapping at us, jumping at every creak. Dad was no better, obsessed with fixing the house like it could fix us. I was on my own, except for Liam, and we were both scared. Those eyes weren't just watching, they were waiting for something. And I was determined to find out what, even if it meant walking into the forest myself. This isn't a ghost story. It's about what happens when you move somewhere you don't belong, when the land itself pushes back. Stick with me, because what I found in those woods will stay with you forever. Living in that house was like holding your breath, waiting for something to break. The old Victorian creaked under our weight, its walls stained with years of neglect. Every night I'd see those glowing eyes in the forest below, closer now, sometimes swaying like they were moving through the trees. I stopped telling Mom and Dad. They were too busy fighting over bills and broken pipes to listen. But Liam was my shadow, trailing me with wide eyes, whispering about the noises he heard. "It's not an animal, Emma," he said one morning, clutching his sketchbook. He'd drawn the eyes, 2 jagged circles glowing yellow against a black forest. I shoved the drawing in my journal, my hands shaking. He was right. Whatever was out there wasn't just watching, it was learning us. The house didn't help. Its rooms were too big, its shadows too deep. The attic smelled like mold and something sharp, like metal left in the rain. I kept the lockbox hidden under a floorboard, too scared to pry it open but too curious to throw it out. Sometimes I'd hear it hum, a low pulse that matched the rhythm of my heartbeat. I told myself it was my imagination, but Liam heard it, too. "It's talking," he said, his voice barely a whisper. I snapped at him to stop, but I didn't sleep that night. The eyes were outside my window again, brighter, almost daring me to come closer. Mom started noticing things too, though. She wouldn't admit it. She'd pause, while cooking, staring out the kitchen window toward the forest, her knife hovering over the cutting board. "Did you see something move?" she'd ask, then shake her head, blaming exhaustion. Dad was worse. Obsessed with the house, he'd spend hours in the basement muttering about wiring and leaks. Once I caught him staring at the forest, his hammer dangling in his hand, his face pale. "This place doesn't want us," he said, so quiet I wasn't sure I heard right. When I asked what he meant, he brushed it off, but I saw the fear in his eyes. I started mapping the forest in my journal, marking where I saw the eyes each night. They weren't random. They followed a path, circling closer to the house. I found more footprints near the property line, pressed deep into the mud, with strange ridges like claws. I took photos, but they came out blurry, like the forest was hiding itself. Liam found something else, a rusted knife buried in the dirt, its handle carved with initials, JH. We didn't know who that was, but it felt like a warning. I hid the knife in my room, telling Liam to keep quiet. The last thing we needed was Mom freaking out. One night I couldn't take it anymore. I snuck out after midnight, my flashlight cutting through the fog. The forest was silent, unnaturally so. No crickets, no wind, just the weight of those eyes. I followed the path I'd mapped, my heart pounding, until I found a clearing. In the center was a pile of stones, arranged like a crude altar stained with something dark. Oil, maybe, or worse. Scratched into the ground was a symbol, a circle, with 3 slashes like the one on the lockbox. My stomach dropped. This wasn't random. Someone, or something, had been here, and they'd left this for us to find. I ran back to the house, my flashlight flickering like it was dying. The forest felt alive, its shadows pressing against me. Liam was awake when I got back, his face pale. "They were closer tonight," he whispered, pointing to his window. I looked out and saw them, those eyes, now at the edge of our yard, unblinking, almost human. I slammed the curtains shut, my hands shaking. We weren't just being watched. Being hunted. I had to figure out what was in that forest, what the lockbox was hiding, before it came for us. The truth was out there, and I was running out of time. The clearing in the forest changed everything. That stone altar, the symbol scratched in the dirt, it wasn't random. Those eyes kept watching us from the woods, their glow cutting through, the fog like a blade. I couldn't shake the feeling that our house was marked, that we'd stumbled into something bigger than us. I stopped talking to Mom and Dad about it. They were too deep in their own fears to listen. But Liam was my partner. Now, his sketchbook filled with drawings of the eyes, the symbol, the knife. "We have to find out what it is," he said, his voice steady despite his age. I nodded, knowing he was right. The forest wasn't just a place, it was a puzzle, and we were running out of time to solve it. I started digging online, searching for anything about our house or the forest. The forum post from Lost Hiker 91 was a dead end, but I found a local history blog, mentioned a family who lived in our house in the 1920s, the Hendersons. They'd vanished one winter, no trace, just a newspaper clipping calling it a tragedy. The blog hinted at rumors, strange lights in the forest, whispers of a watcher who drove people mad. The initials on the knife, J.H., could be John Henderson, the father. My heart raced. Was the lockbox his? And were those eyes connected to their disappearance? I went back to the attic, determined to open the lockbox. It was heavier than I remembered, its surface cold despite the summer heat. I used a screwdriver, prying until the lock snapped. Inside was a leather journal, its pages brittle, filled with John Henderson's handwriting. He described the same eyes I'd seen, glowing, unblinking, always in the forest. They know we're here, he wrote. They want the land. There were sketches, too, a map of the forest, the clearing marked with the same symbol I'd found. The last entry was a warning. Don't go into the woods, they'll take you. My hands shook as I closed the journal. This wasn't just our problem. It was history repeating itself. I showed Liam the journal and his face went white. We're not safe, are we? He asked. I didn't answer. Instead, I started mapping the forest again, using Henderson's sketches as a guide. The eyes were following his path, circling the house like a predator. I found more signs near the clearing. Broken branches, more footprints, and a scrap of fabric caught on a thorn. Too new to be Henderson's. Someone else was out there watching us. Maybe human, maybe not. I took the fabric, my gut telling me it was a clue. One afternoon, I convinced Liam to come with me to the clearing. We brought the knife just in case. The forest was quiet, the air thick with the smell of pine and something sour, like decay. The altar was still there, but the stones were shifted like someone had been back. I found a rusted key half buried in the dirt, its shape matching the lockbox's symbol. Before I could grab it, Liam gasped, pointing to the trees. The eyes were there, closer than ever, swaying like they were taunting us. I grabbed his hand and we ran, the forest closing in behind us. The weight of those eyes followed us back to the house, heavy as a curse. Back home, I hid the key with the journal, my mind racing. The Hendersons, the eyes, the symbol. It was all connected. But who was out there now? A squatter, a hunter, or something tied to the land itself? I was scared, but I couldn't stop. The forest was calling, and I had to answer, even if it meant facing what the Hendersons couldn't. The truth was buried out there, and I was going to find it, no matter the cost. The key I found in the clearing was a lifeline, or a trap. It matched the symbol from the lockbox, from Henderson's journal, from the altar. I couldn't stop thinking about it, turning it over in my hands at night, its cold metal burning with secrets. Those eyes were still out there, watching from the forest, closer now, sometimes at the edge of our yard. The house felt like a cage, its walls closing in with every creak. Liam stopped sleeping, his sketchbook filled with frantic drawings of the eyes, the symbol, the clearing. They're coming for us, he whispered, his voice breaking. I wanted to tell him he was wrong, but I felt it too. A pressure like the forest was tightening its grip. I went back to Henderson's journal, reading it under my flashlight. His final entries were desperate, describing a deal with the forest, something about the land, about blood. He mentioned a cave hidden beyond the clearing where the eyes came from. Don't look inside, he wrote. It sees you back. My heart pounded. Was that where the eyes lived? I had to find out, even if it meant risking everything. I told Liam to stay home, but he followed me, stubborn as always. I'm not letting you go alone, he said, clutching the knife. I didn't argue. We needed each other. We went at dawn. The forest draped in mist, the air heavy with that sour decay. The clearing was unchanged, the altar's stones glinting like they were wet. I followed Henderson's map, pushing past thorns and fallen logs until we found it. A cave, its mouth half hidden by vines, the symbol carved above the entrance. The key burned in my pocket, but there was no lock. Inside, the air was cold. The walls slick with something that smelled like iron. My flashlight caught glints of metal, tools, chains, rusted but new enough to be recent. Liam grabbed my arm, pointing to a pile of bones in the corner, small like a child's. My stomach churned. This wasn't just a cave. It was a grave. We heard it then. A low growl, not animal, not human, from deeper in the cave. The eyes appeared, glowing in the dark, swaying like they were circling us. I grabbed Liam, pulling him toward the entrance, but he tripped, his scream echoing. The growl grew louder, and I saw a shape, tall, hunched, moving too fast. It wasn't an animal. It was a man, his face hidden in shadow, his eyes glinting like the ones we'd seen. I swung the knife, slashing at the air, and dragged Liam out, his face pale with terror. We ran, branches tearing at us, the eyes following, their glow burning, through the fog. We made it to the house, slamming the door, but the forest's weight clung to us, heavy as guilt. Inside, I found Mom in the kitchen, her eyes red from crying. "I saw them," she said, her voice shaking. "The eyes, Emma, they're not animals." I showed her the journal, the key, the photos of the cave. For the first time, she listened, her hands trembling as she read Henderson's warnings. Dad came in, his face grim, holding a letter he'd found in the mailbox. No stamp, just our address. It read, "Leave or you're next." My blood ran cold. Someone knew we were digging, knew we'd found the cave. The eyes weren't just watching, they were warning us, protecting something in that forest. The man in the cave wasn't a ghost. He was real, and he was dangerous. We were in over our heads, and time was running out. I clutched the journal, knowing we had to act, but the fear in Mom's eyes told me we might not make it out. The letter, "Leave or you're next," was the final straw. We were trapped in that house, the forest's eyes watching our every move. Their glow haunted us, a constant reminder we weren't welcome. Mom wanted to pack and run, but Dad refused, saying we couldn't afford to start over. I didn't care about the money. I cared about surviving. The cave, the bones, Henderson's journal, the man in the shadows, it all pointed to something bigger, something the forest was hiding. I wanted to go to the police, but what could I say? We saw, man with glowing eyes. They'd lock us up for crazy. Liam was the only one who understood his drawings now, covering his walls, each one darker, more frantic. "They're not leaving, Emma," he said, his voice hollow. "They want us gone." I went back to Henderson's journal, searching for answers. His last entries mentioned a keeper, someone who guarded the forest, tied to the land by a deal no one understood. He'd tried to leave, but the eyes followed him, appearing in his dreams, his windows, until he vanished. The cave was their domain, a place where trespassers didn't come back. I thought about the bones, the tools, the man we'd seen. Someone was still out there, using the cave, protecting whatever secret the forest held. The letter proved it. They knew we were close, and they weren't playing games. We started noticing more signs. Footprints circled the house now, deeper, more deliberate. The lockbox hummed louder, its vibrations waking me at night. Mom found a scratch on her car, the same symbol from the cave etched into the paint. Dad finally broke, admitting he'd seen the eyes too, closer than ever, at the edge of the porch. "We're leaving," he said, his voice shaking. But leaving wasn't easy. The car wouldn't start the next morning, its battery drained despite being new. The phone line went dead, and our internet flickered out. The forest was closing in, cutting us off. like it had with the Hendersons. I made one last trip to the clearing, alone, at dusk. I needed proof, something to take to the police, something to end this. The altar was different now, the stones rearranged, fresh dirt piled beside them. I found a photo half buried, old but clear. A man, maybe 30, standing in the cave, holding the same knife we'd found. His eyes were cold, his smile wrong, like he knew the camera was watching. On the back, in faded ink, JH 1925. My hands shook. This was John Henderson, or someone pretending to be him. Was he the keeper, or was someone else carrying on his work? I heard a branch snap behind me. The eyes were there, glowing closer than ever. No longer swaying, but fixed, human-like. I ran, the photo clutched in my hand, the forest roaring with footsteps I couldn't see. I made it to the house, locking the door, my family staring at me like I'd brought trouble inside. We left that night, piling into a neighbor's car, the house fading in the rear view. The eyes watched us go, their glow lingering in the trees. We never went back. We're in a new town now, but the forest follows me. I keep the photo, the journal, the key, hidden in a box I don't open. Last week I got a text from an unknown number. A single word. Keeper. I deleted it, but I check my windows every night, half expecting those eyes. The house is gone, but its shadow stays with us. This isn't just a story, it's a warning. Some places aren't meant for you. If you move somewhere and feel watched, don't ignore it. Dig, run, fight, but don't stay. The forest doesn't forget, and neither will you. I still wonder, who's out there guarding those woods? And what did they want from us? Deep in the Wisconsin woods, where the trees whisper secrets and the night hides its eyes, we pitched our tents on a ridge above a shadowed valley. I'm Nate, and that camping trip was supposed to be a break from city life. But as darkness fell, we saw them. Glowing eyes staring up at us from the forest below, level with our own. Impossible. The valley was 50 feet down, yet those eyes locked onto us. Unblinking, unnatural. The forest felt alive, watching us from below the hill. This isn't just a campfire tale. It's the night we learned some places don't welcome intruders. By dawn we were running, haunted by what we'd seen. Stick with me, because this story will make you rethink ever stepping foot in the wild. The tossed Wisconsin wilderness was our escape. After months in Milwaukee's concrete jungle, my friends and I craved the quiet of the woods. We chose a remote ridge overlooking a dense forest valley, perfect for a weekend of camping. I'm Nate, the planner of our group, joined by Claire, my old college roommate, Ryan, the outdoorsy type, and Zoe, Claire's cousin who loved ghost stories. We packed tents, a cooler of beer, and enough marshmallows to last a week, ready for starry nights and campfire laughs. The ridge was stunning but eerie. Tall pines loomed overhead, their branches knitting a canopy that blocked the sun. Below, the valley dropped sharply, a tangle of underbrush and shadows. The forest felt different, heavier, like it was watching us. Ryan brushed it off, joking about bears, but Zoe was quieter, her eyes scanning the trees. "This place has a vibe," she said, half serious. I laughed, but her words stuck. We set up camp as the sun dipped low, the air cooling fast. Claire strung fairy lights around our tents, giving the ridge a cozy glow. Ryan built a fire, and we cracked open beers, trading stories about city life and old adventures. Zoe pulled out her phone, reading from a local blog about the area's history. "They say these woods were sacred to the Ojibwe," she read. "People vanished here in the 1800s, and some claim the forest remembers." We teased her for being dramatic, but the silence that followed felt heavier, the crackle of the fire suddenly too loud. As night fell, the valley below became a void, swallowing the last light. We'd heard rumors of strange sightings, glowing eyes, whispers in the trees, but I chalked it up to campfire tales. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that the forest was alive, its shadows shifting just beyond our fire's reach. Claire noticed it too, her fingers tightening around her beer can. "It's too quiet," she whispered. No crickets, no owls, just the wind, low and mournful. We tried to keep the mood light, roasting marshmallows and planning a hike for morning. But as the fire died down, the darkness pressed closer, and my bravado started to crack. Something was out there, waiting. I didn't know it yet, but those glowing eyes were about to turn our weekend escape into a nightmare we'd never forget. The fire was down to embers, casting flickering shadows across our campsite. We were halfway through a ghost story Zoe was telling, her voice low and dramatic, when Ryan froze, his beer halfway to his lips. "What's that?" he whispered, pointing to the valley below. We followed his gaze, and my heart skipped a beat. There they were, glowing eyes, bright and unblinking, staring up at us from the forest below. Not animal eyes, not deer or coyotes. These were different, almost human, but wrong. And they were level with our own, despite the valley dropping 50 feet beneath the ridge. "Impossible," Claire breathed, her voice trembling. I squinted, trying to make sense of it. The eyes didn't move, didn't blink, just locked onto us, suspended in the darkness. "Maybe it's a reflection," I said, but my voice sounded hollow. "Reflections don't stare." Zoe grabbed her flashlight, aiming it into the valley. The beam cut through the shadows, but the eyes didn't flinch. They glowed brighter, defiant, like they were feeding on the light. Ryan stood, his jaw tight. "That's not normal. We're up here and that's..." "What, floating?" He was right. The geometry didn't add up. The forest was far below, yet those eyes met ours, as if something was standing at our height in the void. My skin prickled, a primal instinct screaming that we were being watched, studied. Claire clutched my arm, her nails digging in. "Nate, what is that?" I didn't have an answer. The air felt heavier now, the silence oppressive, broken only by the faint rustle of leaves in the valley. Zoe's flashlight shook as she swept it across the trees, revealing nothing but branches and underbrush. "There's nothing there," she said, but her voice cracked. The eyes were still there, unyielding, their glow cutting through the dark like twin beacons. "Let's build the fire back up," I said, trying to sound calm. Ryan nodded, tossing logs onto the embers, but his hands were shaking. The flames roared back to life, and for a moment, the eyes seemed to dim as if retreating. But they didn't vanish. They hovered just beyond the fire's reach, watching. We sat frozen, staring into the valley, unable to look away from those impossible eyes. Claire broke the silence, her voice barely above a whisper. "I read about this place. Old stories. The Ojibwe believed spirits lived in these woods, guardians of the land." She swallowed hard. "What if we're not supposed to be here?" Ryan scoffed, but it was forced, his eyes darting to the valley. "Spirits, come on, it's probably just, I don't know, some weird animal." But he didn't sound convinced. So he pulled out her phone again, her fingers trembling as she scrolled through the blog. "It says here that campers in the 70s saw lights in these woods, eyes that followed them. Some never made it back." Her words hung in the air, cold and heavy. I wanted to dismiss it, to say it was just a story. But those eyes were real. And they were still there, staring. The wind picked up, carrying a low, mournful hum that seemed to come from the valley itself. It wasn't the wind. It was something else, something alive, vibrating in our chests. Claire gasped, pointing. The eyes had moved closer, now just at the edge of the ridge, still level with us, their glow piercing the darkness. "They're climbing," she whispered, her voice breaking. Ryan grabbed a stick from the fire, waving it like a torch. "Back off," he shouted, but the eyes didn't budge. If anything, they seemed to pulse, brighter, angrier. My heart pounded as I scanned the valley, searching for a shape, a body, anything to explain what we were seeing. Nothing. Just those eyes, floating, watching, waiting. "We need to pack up," Zoe said, her voice urgent. "We can't stay here." But leaving meant walking through the dark, past those eyes, down the trail to our car a mile away. The thought made my stomach churn. "We've got the fire," I said, grasping for control. "Let's wait till morning. Whatever it is, it's not coming up here." But even as I said it, I wasn't sure. The forest was alive, its gaze fixed on us, and we were intruders in its domain. The fire roared, but it didn't feel like protection anymore. Those glowing eyes were closer now, just beyond the ridge, their stare unrelenting. The hum from the valley grew louder, a deep guttural pulse that seemed to shake the ground. Claire was trembling, her eyes locked on the valley. "They're not stopping," she whispered. Ryan gripped his torch tighter, his bravado gone. "What the hell are they?" I tried to think rationally, to find an explanation. Maybe hikers with headlamps? But headlamps don't float, don't stare with that eerie intelligence. Zoe clutched her phone, rereading the blog. It says the eyes are tied to the land. Protectors, something. Campers who saw them, they didn't all make it out. Her voice shook, and I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the night air. The eyes moved again, now at the very edge of the ridge, their glow so bright it hurt to look at them. They were still level with us, defying the valley's depth, as if the forest itself was rising to meet us. My heart pounded, my mind racing. "We can't stay," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "We need to get to the car." Zoe nodded, already stuffing her sleeping bag into her pack. Claire hesitated, her eyes wide. "What if they follow us?" Ryan swung his torch, the flames casting wild shadows. "Let's move. Now." We scrambled to pack, the hum growing louder, more insistent, like a warning. The eyes didn't blink, didn't waver, their gaze boring into us as we doused the fire. The darkness rushed in, thick and suffocating, and for a moment, I thought the eyes had vanished. Then I saw them again, closer, just beyond our tents, their glow cutting through the night like knives. We grabbed our packs, flashlights shaking in our hands. The trail to the car was a mile downhill, winding through the forest. The thought of walking past those eyes made my blood run cold, but staying wasn't an option. "Stay close," I said, leading the way. Ryan took the rear, his torch the only light besides our flashlights. The hum followed us, a constant drone that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. Halfway down the trail, Claire stumbled, her flashlight dropping. As she bent to grab it, she screamed, "They're here!" I spun around, and there they were. The eyes, now just feet away, still level with ours, glowing in the underbrush. The forest was silent. No wind, no animals. Just that hum, now so loud it rattled my teeth. Zoe grabbed Claire, pulling her up. "Run!" she shouted. We sprinted, branches snapping underfoot, our flashlights bouncing wildly. The eyes kept pace, darting through the trees, always at eye level, always watching. My lungs burned, but fear drove me forward. Ryan's torch flickered, the flames struggling against the dark. "They're everywhere," he yelled, and he was right. More eyes appeared, pairs of glowing orbs surrounding us, their light pulsing in time with the hum. The trail opened to a clearing, the car just visible in the distance, but the eyes were closing in, their glow brighter, angrier. I tripped, my flashlight rolling into the dirt. As I scrambled to my feet, I felt it. A cold, heavy presence, like the forest itself was pressing down on me. The eyes were all around us now, a circle of light in the darkness, trapping us on the trail. Claire sobbed, clinging to Zoe. Ryan swung his torch, shouting, "Back! Off!" But the eyes didn't move. The hum reached a crescendo, a sound so deep it shook my bones. Then, from the valley, a new sound, a low, guttural growl. Not animal, not human, but something else. My heart stopped. Whatever was out there wasn't just watching anymore. It was coming. "Keep going," I yelled, grabbing Claire's arm. We ran, the car our only hope. The eyes followed, their glow never fading, but the growl grew fainter, as if the forest was letting us go. We reached the car, piling in, our hands shaking as we fumbled with the keys. Ryan floored it, the tires spinning on the dirt road. The eyes watched us from the trees, their light fading as we escaped, but their stare lingered in my mind. Back in Milwaukee, we tried to move on, but those glowing eyes haunted us. Claire stopped camping, her dreams plagued by that unblinking stare. Ryan threw out his hiking gear, refusing to talk about it. Zoe and I scoured old records, desperate for answers. The forest had felt alive, its gaze a warning we couldn't ignore. Local archives mentioned the Ojibwe's sacred woods, where spirits guarded the land, their eyes glowing in the dark. A 1970s report noted missing campers, last seen near our ridge, their gear found untouched. We'll never camp there again. That night changed us, taught us the wild isn't just trees and trails. It's a force ancient and unforgiving. I still hear that hum sometimes, feel those eyes in the shadows. The forest didn't just watch us, it judged us, and we barely escaped. If you camp in Wisconsin's woods, tread lightly. Some places don't forgive intruders, and their eyes never forget. I'm Tom, a dad who'd do anything for his kids. We were deep in the Tennessee woods, our family hike a chance to bond. But that night, as the fire crackled, a voice cut through the dark. A child's voice calling Daddy. It sounded like my daughter, but she was asleep beside me. My heart stopped. When I grabbed my flashlight, I saw them. Glowing eyes in the forest, staring back. Not human, not animal. This isn't just a creepy tale. It's the night I faced a fear no parent should know. Those eyes haunted me, and that voice wasn't my child's. By dawn, we were running, chased by something we couldn't name. Stay with me, because this story will make you rethink the safety of the wild. The Tennessee woods were our family's escape. After a hectic year in Nashville, I wanted to give my kids, Lila, 8, and Ben, 12, a weekend of adventure. My wife Karen and I planned a hike through a remote forest trail, camping under the stars. I'm Tom, the dad who's always been the protector, joined by Karen, the planner, and our kids, who were thrilled for a break from screens. We chose a trail in the Cherokee National Forest, known for its rugged beauty, but also its eerie quiet, a place where the trees seemed to hold secrets. The trail was breathtaking, winding through towering pines and rocky outcrops. Lila skipped, ahead collecting pine cones while Ben snapped photos with his phone. Karen kept us on track, her map marked with our campsite, a clearing a mile in. As dusk fell, the forest grew still, its silence heavy, like it was listening. Karen noticed it first, pausing to scan the trees. "It's too quiet," she said, her voice low. I brushed it off, joking about city nerves, but her words lingered. We set up camp, pitching 2 tents and building a fire. The kids roasted marshmallows, their laughter easing the tension. Ben read from a park pamphlet about the forest's history. It says these woods were sacred to the Cherokee, he read. Some hikers hear voices like the land still, speaking. Lila giggled, but Karen's eyes met mine, a flicker of unease passing between us. I pushed it aside, focusing on the fire's warmth, but the forest's silence felt wrong, like a held breath. The trail had felt off during our hike, a strange emptiness I couldn't shake. No birds, no squirrels, just the crunch of our boots. I'd told myself it was normal, but as we settled into camp, that feeling grew. The fire's light didn't reach far, and the darkness beyond seemed to pulse, alive with unseen eyes. Karen strung lanterns around the tents, their glow a small comfort, but the forest's quiet was deafening, pressing in on us. We tucked the kids into their tent, promising a morning of exploring. As Karen and I sat by the fire, the silence deepened, the air thick with an unspoken tension. I checked my flashlight, a habit from years of camping, but my protector's instinct was on edge. Something was out there, waiting. I didn't know it yet, but that voice, that chilling call, was about to turn our family trip into a nightmare we'd carry forever. The fire was down to embers, its glow barely holding back the Tennessee night. Karen and I were in our tent, the kids asleep in theirs when it came, a voice clear and piercing cutting through the dark. "Daddy!" It sounded like Lila, my daughter, her voice desperate, calling from the woods. My heart stopped, a surge of panic flooding my veins. I bolted upright, unzipping the tent, flashlight in hand. "Lila!" I shouted, my voice hoarse. Karen grabbed my arm, her eyes wide. "Tom, she's right here." I stumbled to the kids' tent, my flashlight shaking. Lila and Ben were there, asleep, untouched. My daughter hadn't called me, she was safe. Relief crashed over me, but it was short-lived. If it wasn't Lila, who or what had called? Karen joined me, her face pale. "What was that?" she whispered, her voice trembling. The forest was silent again, but it wasn't empty. Something was out there, mimicking my daughter's voice. I grabbed my flashlight, its beam cutting through the dark. "Stay with the kids," I told Karen, my protector's instinct kicking in. I stepped beyond the fire's glow, the woods swallowing the light. "Who's there?" I called, my voice echoing off the trees. No answer, just the faint rustle of leaves, though there was no wind. My skin prickled, a father's fear mixing with something deeper, primal. I swept my flashlight across the trees, and there they were, glowing eyes, bright and unblinking, staring back from the darkness. Not animal, not human. Something else, their light cold, intelligent, wrong. "Tom!" Karen hissed from the tent, her voice urgent. I backed away, my heart pounding, but the eyes didn't move, didn't blink, just watched, locked onto me. They were low, too low for a person, yet they held a gaze that felt human, predatory. I stumbled back to the fire, my breath ragged. "Did you see that?" I asked Karen, my voice shaking. She nodded, her eyes fixed on the woods. "They're still there," she whispered, pointing. The eyes hadn't moved, their glow piercing the night like twin stars. Ben stirred in the tent, rubbing his eyes. "Dad, what's going on?" he asked, his voice sleepy but scared. "Stay inside," I said, trying to sound calm. Lila woke too, clinging to Karen. "I heard someone," she said, her voice small. My stomach twisted. Had she heard the call too? I rebuilt the fire, its flames a desperate shield, but the eyes stayed, unyielding, just beyond the clearing. Karen pulled out her phone, her hands shaking as she searched for Cherokee National Forest lore. "It says these woods have stories," she read. "Voices calling names, luring people away, tied to old Cherokee spirits or something darker." Her words chilled me. Ben's pamphlet had mentioned voices, but this was real, and it had my daughter's voice. The forest was alive, its eyes watching, its voice calling, and we were in its sights. Another call came. "Daddy!" Closer, sharper, from the trail we'd hiked. My blood ran cold. It was Lila's voice, but she was here. Safe. "That's not her," Karen said, her voice breaking. I grabbed my flashlight, aiming it at the trail. The eyes were still there, now joined by a second pair, their glow brighter, angrier. "Stay back!" I shouted, my voice raw, but the eyes didn't flinch, their stare boring into me. Ben peeked out, his face pale. "Dad, what's out there?" he asked, his voice trembling. "I don't know," I admitted, my protector's mask slipping. Lila started to cry, and Karen pulled her close, her eyes never leaving the woods. The calls came again. "Daddy! Daddy!" A chorus now, multiple voices, all mimicking Lila, weaving through the trees. My heart pounded, a father's worst nightmare unfolding in the dark. The eyes moved closer, their light cutting through the night, pinning us in the clearing. I gripped my flashlight, my mind racing. Was it a trick, a lure? The Cherokee stories spoke of spirits, but this felt malevolent, hungry. "We need to stay together," I said, my voice steady despite the fear. The fire roared, but it wasn't enough. The forest was waking, and it knew my daughter's voice. The fire's flames danced, but they couldn't push back the Tennessee. Dark. The calls, "Daddy!" were closer now, a chorus of voices mimicking Lila, echoing from every direction. My heart pounded, each cry a knife to my chest. Karen held Lila and Ben close, her face pale, her eyes fixed on the woods. The glowing eyes were everywhere, pairs of light dotting the trees, low and predatory, watching us with unrelenting focus. My flashlight shook as I swept it across the clearing, catching more eyes, their glow brighter, angrier, as if the forest is closing in. "Tom, we can't stay," Karen whispered, her voice trembling. Ben nodded, his phone clutched tight, the pamphlet's words about Cherokee spirits haunting him. Lila sobbed, "Daddy, make it stop!" My protector's instinct roared, but fear gnawed at me. What was out there using my daughter's voice? I rebuilt the fire, its heat a frail defense, but the eyes didn't retreat. They multiplied, a constellation of dread surrounding our camp. Karen scrolled through her phone, her hands shaking. "It says the Cherokee believed in spirits that lure with voices, pulling people into the woods," she read. "Some call them skinwalkers, others say they're older, tied to the land." The words hit like a blow. Skinwalkers? Spirits? Whatever it was, it knew Lila's voice, and it was hunting us. The forest wasn't just alive. It was angry, its eyes a warning, its calls a trap. Another cry, "Daddy, help!" came from the trail, so close it felt like Lila was standing there. I spun my flashlight, my blood freezing. The eyes were at the clearing's edge, their glow pulsing in time with the calls. "That's not her," Karen shouted, pulling Lila tighter. Ben grabbed a stick from the fire, waving it like a torch. "Stay back!" he yelled, his voice cracking. The eyes didn't move, but the calls grew louder, a cacophony of "Daddy" that tore at my soul. "We need to go," I said, my voice steady despite the terror. The car was a mile away, down the trail we'd hiked. Leaving meant facing those eyes, those voices, but staying was worse. "Pack up now," I ordered, grabbing our gear. Karen stuffed blankets into a bag, her hands shaking. Lila clung to her, whimpering, while Ben helped me douse the fire. The darkness rushed in, thick and suffocating, and the eyes glowed brighter. As if sensing our plan, we grabbed flashlights, their beams weak against the forest's weight. "Stay close," I said, leading the way. Karen and the kids in the middle, Ben at the rear with his torch. The trail was a tunnel of shadows, the trees pressing in. The calls followed us, "Daddy! Daddy!" Closer, louder, as if the forest was chasing us. My heart pounded, a father's fear mixing with raw survival instinct. The eyes kept pace, darting through the underbrush, always low, always watching. Halfway to the car, a new sound joined the calls. A low, guttural growl, not animal, not human, but something else. My blood ran cold. "Keep moving," I shouted, my flashlight swinging wildly. The growl grew louder, joined by rustling, like something heavy moving through the trees. Lila screamed, and Karen pulled her closer, her eyes wide with terror. Ben's torch flickered, the flames struggling against the dark. "They're everywhere!" he yelled, pointing to more eyes, their glow a circle of light trapping us on the trail. I tripped, my flashlight rolling into the dirt. As I scrambled to grab it, I felt it, a cold, heavy presence like the forest was breathing down my neck. The calls were deafening now. "Daddy!" from every direction, and the eyes were closer, their light blinding. Karen grabbed my arm, pulling me up. "Tom, run!" she shouted. We sprinted, the trail a blur, the kids' cries mixing with the forest's voice, the growls shaking the ground. The trail opened to a clearing, the car's outline visible in the moonlight. But the calls didn't stop. They were behind us, beside us, inside us. I fumbled with the keys, my hands shaking as another "Daddy" split the air, so close I felt its vibration. "Get in!" I yelled, diving into the driver's seat. Karen and the kids piled in, slamming the doors as the growl grew louder, the eyes closing in, their light flooding the clearing. I turned the key, the engine roaring to life. The calls and eyes chased us down the dirt road, their glow fading. As we sped away, but the forest's grip lingered. The trees receded, but my heart didn't slow. The memory of that voice, my daughter's voice, etched into my mind. We didn't speak, didn't look back, just drove until the city lights broke the darkness, a fragile promise of safety. Back in Nashville, we tried to move on, but that voice, "Daddy," haunted us. Lila had nightmares, waking up crying. For me, her real voice now a painful echo of that night. Ben stopped hiking, his phone full of photos he'd never share. Karen and I scoured old records, desperate for answers. The forest had called, its eyes a warning we couldn't ignore. Archives spoke of Cherokee spirits, skinwalkers, luring hikers with familiar voices. A 1980s report mentioned a lost camper, found miles from his tent muttering about eyes in the dark. We'll never hike there again. That night taught us the wild isn't just a place. It's a force. Its voices tied to the land. Its eyes never blinking. I still hear that call sometimes, see those eyes in the shadows. The forest didn't just scare us. It claimed a piece of us, a father's fear that won't fade. If you walk Tennessee's trails, listen carefully. Some voices aren't your own, and they never forget. It started with a sound, a low, rhythmic thumping like a heartbeat pulsing through the walls of our old townhouse. I was 10, lying in bed, the darkness thick around me, when it began. The noise wasn't loud, but it was wrong, as if the house itself was alive, watching me. I pulled the covers over my head, heart racing, telling myself it was just the pipes. But deep down, I knew better. That house wasn't just a home. It was a presence, and it had plans for us. This is the story of my worst experiences, the eerie, events that haunted my childhood and forced my family to flee. What we didn't know then was that some houses don't let you go so easily. My name is Emma, and I grew up in an old townhouse complex in a small Kansas town called Ottawa. These are all true stories of experiences that I had while living in that house. Our family, Mom, Dad, my little brother Max, and me, moved in when I was 8. I'll describe the layout of the house so from front to back, You walk into the four den, and moving forward, you enter into the kitchen with a doorway to your right that leads to a bathroom and a master bedroom. If you continue through the kitchen, it leads to a dining room and living room on the left. If you go through the dining room further to the back of the house, it leads to a doorless room that we used for a computer room and then 2 more bedrooms. In the back, it was a creaky, drafty place with peeling wallpaper and a musty smell that never went away. Mom called it charming. I called it creepy. The first strange event happened a month after we moved in. The first experience happened not long after moving in. At the time, my mom had started a new relationship and we moved in with him. His mom also lived there as well, and she had the master bedroom at the front of the house. My mom and her new boyfriend, they had the room at the very back of the house, and I was in the room next to them. One night I woke to music, delicate, tinkling notes like a music box. One night, I heard all of my mom's music boxes just start playing out of nowhere. She had these painted clowns and such that sat on satin pillows and played music. I crept to Mom's room, expecting to find her winding them up, but she was asleep. The music stopped as I stepped inside, leaving only silence and a chill down my spine. It was years later that my mom finally told me that she wasn't playing with them. I told myself it was nothing, a quirk of the old house. But the incidents kept coming. Our 2 cats, Shadow and Luna, started acting strange. Another strange thing that used to occur in the same house is that we had 2 cats, and they used to just sort of sit at the bottom of the stairs and look up at the landing like they were watching someone. The landing at the top overlooked the stairs, and I used to feel like someone was looking down at me when going up them all the time. Shadow would sit there for hours, his eyes fixed on empty air, his tail twitching. Luna would hiss at the computer room doorway, refusing to enter. I'd feel it too, a weight in the air, like unseen eyes tracking my every move. Dad laughed it off, saying cats were weird, but Mom's face tightened whenever I mentioned it. The house began to feel like a puzzle, each odd event a piece I couldn't place. Lights flickered in the den, even after Dad replaced the bulbs. Doors creaked open an inch overnight, though we swore we'd lock them. Once, I found my favorite doll in the kitchen, its head turned backward, though no one had touched it. I started sleeping with a flashlight jumping at every shadow. Max, only 6, seemed unbothered, but I caught him whispering to nobody in the computer room, giggling like he had a secret friend. When I asked, he just smiled and said, "She likes you, Emma." Mom started to notice too. She'd pause, in the kitchen, staring at the walls as if they whispered back. My mom ended up having a priest come in and bless our home. We did a little bit of research and found that the property had actually burned down in the past. The priest's visit was tense. He sprinkled holy water, muttered prayers, but left quickly, his face pale. Later, Mom found her dream catcher missing, along with my collection of polished stones. He stole my stone collection and dream catcher. Still pretty ticked off about that, by the way. The blessing didn't help. If anything, the house felt angrier, the air heavier, as if we'd provoked whatever lived there. By winter, I was scared to be alone in any room. The thumping returned, louder, sometimes joined by a faint scratching, like nails on wood. I'd lie awake, clutching my flashlight, praying for morning. The house wasn't just haunted. It was watching us, waiting for something. But what? And why did I feel like it wanted me most of all? The house's grip tightened as the months passed. What started as odd noises became undeniable events, each one chipping away at our sense of safety. I was 11 now, old enough to know something was wrong, but too young to understand what. The second thing that happened was probably the scariest experience of my life. I was still in one of the back bedrooms, but by this time, my step-grandma had moved out, so my mom and her boyfriend were in the master bedroom at the front of the house. I was alone in the back. One night I woke to a rustling sound like plastic crinkling. I have siblings, but they were back and forth between my mom and dad, so at this point I was the only kid there. My mom and I had just come home from Walmart, and she had gotten me The Nightmare Before Christmas on VHS. I put it in my dresser and went to bed. It was still wrapped in the cellophane and still in the Walmart bag. The noise grew louder, insistent. As I was falling asleep, I heard the plastic of the bag. Even with my nightlight on, I couldn't see anything. I tossed my cat Shadow to the floor, hoping he'd chase whatever it was away. Instead, he literally took off. My heart pounded as the crinkling continued. I kept hearing the plastic and was literally petrified. I couldn't even scream. I was so scared. I froze, eyes wide, until I passed out from fear. I eventually woke up, and when I did, the movie was now out of the case and on the floor, and honestly, I simply cannot explain how that happened. The VHS was unwrapped, the bag torn, as if something had clawed it open. I never told Mom too, scared she'd think I was crazy. The house seemed to feed on our fear. Mom started sleeping with the lights on, claiming she felt watched in the master bedroom. Dad, who worked long shifts at a remote camp, worked in a remote work camp and was gone 15 days at a time, dismissed it as old house quirks. But even he couldn't explain the cold spots in the dining room, where your breath would fog even in summer. Max began drawing pictures of a lady with no face, always standing at the top of the stairs. When Mom saw them, she burned them, her hands shaking. "Don't talk about her," she whispered. But I saw the fear in her eyes. I started researching, sneaking into the computer room to search for ghost stories. We did a little bit of research and found that the property had actually burned down in the past. The articles were vague. A fire in the 1920s, a family lost, no clear cause. I found a forum where locals shared rumors. The land was cursed, built on an old burial site. One user claimed to have lived in our complex, describing a shadow woman who followed them at night. My stomach twisted. Was that what Max saw? Was that what watched me? The incidents grew bolder. One afternoon, I was home alone doing homework in the living room when the TV turned on by itself, static hissing. A voice, low, garbled, muttered from the speakers. I yanked the plug, my hands trembling, but the static lingered in my ears. Another time, I found the kitchen cabinets wide open, every dish stacked neatly on the floor. Mom blamed Max, but he was at school. The cats stopped going upstairs entirely, their fur bristling whenever we carried them near the landing. Shadow would yowl at the computer room, clawing at the doorframe like he saw something we couldn't. I started keeping a journal, logging every event. The thumping, the music boxes, the static, the dishes. I drew the landing, sketching the spot, where the cat stared, hoping to make sense of it. One entry read, "It knows my name, I heard it whisper Emma last night." I didn't tell anyone, afraid they'd lock me up. But the house was speaking and I was listening, whether I wanted to or not. The question wasn't if we'd leave, but when. And what would the house do to keep us? The house didn't just haunt us, it hunted us. By the time I was 12, the events were relentless, each one more brazen than the last. The third experience, I had a friend over, and this story still gives her chills as well. She had recently lost her mom in a car accident, and this was another attempt of her sleeping over. My friend Claire was staying the night, her first time since her mom's death. This time she actually stayed the whole night. We were in my bedroom, giggling over magazines, when we heard a thud from the computer room. The experience itself wasn't scary for me, but I had a poster of the Crow. It was my first poster ever, and I loved it. When I woke up, it was tacked upside down. I certainly wouldn't have done that to Brandon Lee. And when my friend saw that, she turned white, and she never spent the night again. Claire swore she hadn't touched it and Max was too short to reach the tacks. We stared at the poster, its inverted image chilling us into silence. That night, I woke to Claire whimpering. She was sitting up staring at the door. "Someone's out there," she whispered. I listened and there it was, a soft shuffle like footsteps pacing the hall. I grabbed my flashlight but the beam caught nothing. The shuffling stopped, replaced by a low hum, almost a lullaby vibrating through the walls. Claire grabbed her bag and begged to go home. I didn't argue. After she left, I found a handprint on the outside of my window, too large to be Max's, too small to be Dad's. The glass was ice cold, even in July. The house's aggression peaked one afternoon. My fourth experience was probably the second scariest one. We had cats at that time, but one day in the middle of the day, my brother was down the street playing football at the school, and I was home alone with my mom. I was in the computer room, and, she was in the kitchen. The day before, my little brother had been pretending that he had caught an alien. He had a huge plaster ET piggy bank that was probably like 1 1/2 to 2 feet tall. He had a rope tied around it because he had caught it, you know. I was typing when a crash echoed from Max's room. All of a sudden, I hear a loud crash from the rooms in the back, and here comes my cat Jara with the other end of the rope tied around her tail. Jara was a tabby. They're kind of known for just being all around crazy, but for anything to keep that cat still long enough to tie something around her tail, well, that's kind of mind-boggling. Something had definitely tied it around her tail like that. It wasn't an accident. There was a bow and everything and broke off E.T.'s head in the process. Mom ran in, her face pale, and untied Jara, who bolted upstairs. The piggy bank was shattered. The rope knotted tightly. No one had been in the room. That was the breaking point. Mom called a family meeting, her voice trembling. "We can't stay here," she said. Dad, home for once, argued it was just an old house, but even he looked shaken. Max, clutching his stuffed dinosaur, whispered, "The lady doesn't want us to go." We all froze. "What lady?" Mom asked. Max pointed to the landing. "The one who sings." I saw the terror in Mom's eyes. She'd heard it too. We packed essentials that night, staying at a motel until we could find a new place. But the house wasn't done with us. As we loaded the car, I looked back. A shadow moved in my bedroom window, too tall, too wrong to be human. It raised a hand as if waving goodbye. Leaving the house was like escaping a trap, but it didn't feel like freedom. We moved 2 blocks away to the house that my parents bought, but the fear followed us. When we first moved, I was terrified that whatever used to haunt my nights would find me again. After all, the house that my parents bought was only about 2 blocks away. I'd wake up heart pounding, expecting to hear that thumping. Mom burned sage in every room, a ritual she'd never done before. Max stopped drawing the lady, but he'd stare out the window as if waiting for her. I kept my journal, rereading entries, trying to understand what we'd escaped. The house had marked us, and we needed answers. Mom and I dug deeper. We did a little bit of research and found that the property had actually burned down in the past. We visited the library, poring over old records. The fire in 1923 had killed a family, a mother, Margaret, and her 2 children. The cause was listed as accidental, but newspaper clippings hinted at foul play. A neighbor had reported hearing screams, seeing shadows in the windows days after the blaze. The land was rebuilt in the 1940s, our townhouse one of several. I don't think that the spirit or whatever it was demonic. I actually think that it was a little girl named Margaret. The name sent a chill through me. Was Margaret the lady Max saw? The one who sang? We tracked down a former tenant, an elderly woman named Mrs. Carter. who'd lived in our unit in the 1970s. Over tea, she shared her story. "That house never felt right," she said. "Things moved. Keys, books, my wedding ring. I'd hear a child's voice, calling for her mother." Her eyes darkened. "Once I saw her, a girl, maybe 8, in a white dress standing at the landing. I moved out the next week." Mrs. Carter's hands trembled as she spoke, and I realized we weren't alone in our fear. The house had a history, and we were just its latest victims. Back at our new home, I found an old photo in a box of Mom's things, a Polaroid of our townhouse taken when we moved in. In the background at my bedroom window was a faint figure, blurred but unmistakable. A woman, her face obscured. I showed Mom, and she went pale. "That's why we left," she whispered. My mom was absolutely floored and then went on to tell me when we lived in that house, it used to happen to her as well. This only ever happened when Dad was away. She'd never told me, afraid I'd think she was crazy. But now we knew. The house wasn't just haunted. It was hers. We decided to let it go, to move forward. But I couldn't shake the feeling that Margaret was still out there, tied to that cursed land. I drove past the townhouse years later, and even just being close to it gave me the creeps. It looked the same. Peeling paint, sagging porch. But it felt alive watching me. I didn't stop. Some things are better left behind. The townhouse is a memory now, but its lessons are carved into me. It's been over 20 years since we lived there, and I'm 32, a graphic designer with a life far removed from that haunted complex. But the fear lingers, a quiet reminder of what we endured. I still feel the trauma from that time, not as a wound, but as a badge of survival. The house taught me to trust my instincts, to listen when the world feels wrong. It taught me that some places hold secrets too dark to unravel, and sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away. I'm doing better now, living in a bright apartment with my partner Alex and our dog, Milo. I've shared my story with them, and they believe me. Not because they've seen ghosts, but because they see the strength it took to move on. I've become the family historian, collecting stories from Mom, Max, even Dad, who finally admitted he felt something in that house. Drove past the old house that this happened to me in, and even just being close to it, man, it gave me the creeps. I don't go back anymore. The past is a place I visit in memory, not in person. The biggest lesson? Fear is a signal, not a sentence. When the thumping started, when the cat stared, when Max drew the lady, those were warnings. We ignored them too long, thinking logic could explain the unexplainable. Now I listen. To my gut, to the world, to the people I love. If something feels off, I act. That's the gift the house gave me. Vigilance, not paranoia. It's why I check the locks at night. Why I notice when Alex seems off. Why I never dismiss Max's stories, even now that he's grown. To anyone living in a place that feels wrong, trust yourself. Document everything. Sounds, events, feelings. Talk to your family, your friends, even strangers who've been there. You're not crazy. Some houses, some places carry weight, and it's not your job to carry it for them. Get out, and don't look back. Margaret's story, her pain, her loss belongs to the past. Ours belongs to the future. This isn't just a ghost story. It's a call to listen, to act, to survive. I had no other experiences since then, and I'm grateful. But I carry the house with me, a reminder that even in the darkest places, you can find your way out. If you're in a house that watches, that whispers, know this: you are stronger than its shadows. You can leave, and you will build a life beyond its reach. I'm sprinting through the Greenway trails, heart pounding, the sun dipping low. I'm Alex, and that evening run was meant to clear my head before a weekend camping with friends. But as I settled into my tent that night, a scream tore through. The darkness, a sound so raw, so close it froze my blood. It wasn't human, wasn't animal, but something else right outside my tent. The Greenway, a quiet stretch of Virginia woods, wasn't silent anymore. This isn't just a spooky story. It's the night I learned some forests hold secrets that scream to be heard. By morning, we were fleeing, haunted by what we couldn't explain. Stay with me, because this tale will make you question every sound in the wild. The Greenway trails in Virginia were my sanctuary. After a grueling week at my desk job in Richmond, I craved the open air, the crunch of leaves under my sneakers. I'd gone for a late afternoon run, my usual loop through the Greenway's winding paths, before joining my friends to camp. I'm Alex, the fitness buff of our group, joined by Mia, my co-worker with a knack for navigation, Lucas, a nature photographer, and Emma, Mia's friend who loved a good adventure. We picked a secluded clearing near the trailhead, our tents circled around a fire pit, ready for a weekend of stargazing and stories. The Greenway was beautiful but remote, a stretch of dense woods and rolling hills that felt worlds away from the city. As the sun set, the forest took on a different feel, its silence heavy, almost watchful. Mia noticed it first, pausing as she set up her tent. "It's too still," she said, her eyes scanning the trees. Lucas laughed, snapping photos of the fading light. But Emma was quieter, her gaze lingering on the shadows. We built a fire, the crackle a welcome contrast to the quiet. Over hot dogs and beer, we swapped stories about work and weekend plans. Emma pulled out a local guidebook, reading about the Greenway's history. "It says these woods were a hideout for Civil War deserters," she read. "Some locals swear they hear screams at night, echoes from the past." We teased her, but the words lingered, the forest's silence growing louder in my mind. After my run, I'd felt a strange unease, like the trails were emptier than usual. No hikers, no wildlife, just me in the fading light. I'd pushed it aside, chalking it up to fatigue, but as we settled into camp, that feeling returned. The fire's glow didn't reach far, and the darkness beyond felt alive, pressing in. Lucas set up his camera for night shots, hoping to catch the stars, but his lens kept drifting to the trees, as if drawn to something we couldn't see. We tried to keep things light, planning a morning hike and joking about ghost stories. But as the night deepened, the Greenway's quiet became oppressive, the air thick with an unspoken tension. I zipped up my tent, ready for sleep, but my runner's high was gone. Something was wrong, and the forest knew it. I just didn't know how close that wrongness was until the scream shattered the night. The fire had died to glowing coals, the night wrapping our campsite in a heavy blanket of dark. I was drifting off in my tent, the rhythm of my run still pulsing in my legs when it hit. A scream so raw, so close, it ripped me awake. A blood-curdling shriek right outside my tent. Not human, not animal, but something else entirely. My heart slammed against my chest, every nerve on fire. The Greenway's silence was shattered, the scream echoing in the still air, impossibly near. I bolted upright, fumbling for my flashlight. "Mia! Lucas!" I shouted, my voice hoarse. From their tents, I heard rustling, panicked whispers. "What was that?" Mia called, her voice shaking. Lucas unzipped his tent, his camera clutched like a weapon. "That was no fox," he said, his eyes wide. Emma emerged, her face pale, clutching a pocket knife. "It was right here," she whispered, pointing to the ground just beyond my tent. We gathered by the fire pit, flashlights slicing through the dark. The scream had stopped, but its echo lingered, a jagged edge in my mind. I swept my light across the clearing, expecting to see something. Nothing. Just trees, their branches swaying faintly, though there was no wind. The forest felt alive, its silence now a threat, watching us from every shadow. "We need to check it out," Lucas said, his voice steadier than his trembling hands. Mia shook her head. "Are you crazy? That wasn't normal." I agreed with Mia, but couldn't ignore the scream's proximity. "It was too close," I said, my throat dry. "We need to know what's out there." Emma nodded, her knife glinting in the firelight. We rebuilt the fire, its flames a fragile shield, and scanned the woods. The air was thick, oppressive, like the forest was holding its breath. Lucas pointed his camera, its night mode casting eerie green glow. "Maybe it's a cougar," he said, but his tone lacked conviction. "Cougars don't scream like that." Mia pulled out her phone, her fingers shaky as she searched for Greenway lore. "This says the woods have a history of disturbances," she read. "Hikers in the 90s reported screams, thought to be tied to old battles or something older." Her words chilled me. Emma's guidebook had mentioned Civil War deserters, but this felt different, ancient, like the land itself was crying out. We stood frozen, the scream's echo still ringing, knowing something was out there, just beyond our light. The fire crackled, but the warmth didn't reach us. Then it came again. A second scream, closer, sharper, like a blade slicing the night. We jumped, flashlights swinging wildly. "It's moving," Emma whispered, her voice barely audible. The sound had come from the trail I'd run earlier, now swallowed by darkness. My stomach twisted. Had something followed me back from my run? The thought made my skin crawl. Lucas aimed his camera at the trail, zooming in. "There's nothing," he said, but his voice cracked. Mia grabbed my arm, her nails digging in. "Alex, we need to go, now." But leaving meant hiking through the dark, past whatever was out there. "We've got the fire," I said, trying to sound calm. "Let's wait till dawn." But the forest didn't feel safe anymore. The scream had marked us, and the Greenway was waking up. Another sound broke the silence. A low, guttural moan, different from the scream coming from the trees behind us. My heart pounded as I spun my flashlight, catching only shadows. "What the hell is that?" Lucas hissed, his camera shaking. The moan grew louder, joined by a rustle, like something heavy moving through the underbrush. Emma raised her knife, her eyes wide. "It's circling us," she said, her voice breaking. We backed toward the fire, our flashlights darting between the trees. The moan stopped, but the rustling didn't. A slow, deliberate crunch that seemed to come from all sides. The Greenway was no longer a sanctuary. It was a trap, and we were its prey. I gripped my flashlight like a club, my runner's instinct screaming to bolt. But there was nowhere to go. Whatever was out there was close, too close, and it wasn't done with us yet. The fire's glow was fading, its light no match for the Greenway's suffocating dark. The screams were closer now, each one sharper, more desperate, as if the forest itself was crying out. My heart raced, every rustle in the trees a threat. Lucas kept his camera trained on the trail, his lens trembling. "There's nothing there," he repeated, but his voice was thin, unconvincing. Mia clutched her phone, her face pale as she read more from the blog. "It says the screams might be tied to a native burial ground, disturbed during the Civil War," she whispered. The words hit like a punch. Were we trespassing on sacred land? Emma's knife shook in her hand, her eyes darting to the shadows. "It's not stopping," she said, her voice barely audible. The moans had returned, low and guttural, weaving through the trees like a predator stalking its prey. The rustling grew louder, closer, circling our camp, pinning us in the clearing. My runner's instinct screamed to flee, but the trail was a gauntlet of darkness, and the screams were coming from there. Another scream tore through the night, so close it felt like it was inside my skull. We jumped, flashlights swinging wildly. "It's right there," Mia cried, pointing to the trail. I aimed my light, catching a flicker of movement, branches snapping, leaves shaking, but no shape, no body. The scream faded, replaced by that moan now so deep it vibrated in my chest. Lucas dropped his camera, his hands shaking. "We're not alone," he said, his voice breaking. I tried to think, to find a plan. "We need to get to the car," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. The car was a half-mile down the trail, our only way out. Emma shook her head, her knife glinting. "Through that? With whatever's out there?" Mia nodded, her eyes wide. "We can't stay. It's getting closer." The moans were relentless now, a chorus of unseen threats, and the rustling was everywhere, tightening the noose around our camp. We doused the fire, the darkness rushing in like a tide. Flashlights in hand, we grabbed our packs, the weight slowing us down. The thought of running past whatever was screaming made my blood run cold, but staying was suicide. "Stay together," I said, leading the way. Lucas took the rear, his flashlight shaking as he scanned the trees. The trail was narrow, the woods pressing in, every shadow a potential threat. Halfway to the car, the scream came again, closer, louder, a sound that clawed at my soul. We froze, flashlights darting to the trees. "It's following us," Emma whispered, her knife raised. The moan returned, joined by a new sound, a heavy, deliberate crunch like footsteps just beyond our light. My heart pounded as I swept my flashlight, catching nothing but branches. "Keep moving," I shouted, my voice raw. We ran, the trail a blur of dirt and roots. The screams followed, each one closer, each one more desperate, as if the forest was enraged by our escape. Lucas stumbled, his flashlight rolling into the underbrush. "Leave it," Mia yelled, pulling him up. The moans were everywhere now, a cacophony of dread, and the crunching footsteps kept pace, never showing themselves. My lungs burned, but fear drove me forward. The car, our only hope. The trail opened to a clearing, the car's outline visible in the moonlight. But the screams didn't stop. They were behind us, beside us, everywhere. I fumbled with the keys, my hands shaking as another scream split the air. So close I felt its vibration. "Get in!" I yelled, diving into the driver's seat. Mia, Lucas, and Emma piled in, slamming the doors as the moans grew louder, the crunching footsteps circling the car. I turned the key, the engine roaring to life. The screams chased us. Down the dirt road, their echo fading as we sped away. But the greenway's grip lingered. The forest's edge receded, but my heart didn't slow. The memory of that scream etched into my mind. We didn't speak, didn't look back, just drove until the city lights broke the darkness, a fragile promise of safety. Back in Richmond, we tried to move on, but that scream haunted us. Mia avoided the outdoors, her nights plagued by that raw, unearthly sound. Lucas deleted his photos, refusing to look at them. Emma and I dug into Greenway's past, desperate for answers. The forest had screamed, its voice a warning we couldn't ignore. Old records spoke of a native burial ground, disturbed by war, its spirits restless. A 1990s hiker's report mentioned screams, blamed on something ancient, never explained. We'll never camp in the Greenway again. That night taught us, the wild isn't just a playground, it's alive, its history etched in every tree. I still hear that scream sometimes, feel the forest's gaze in the dark. The Greenway didn't just scare us, it marked us, and we barely escaped. If you hike its trails, listen closely. Some sounds aren't just echoes, they're warnings, and they don't forgive. You've just heard 10 stories that will make you question everything around you. But the truth is, they aren't over. These stories have a way of following you, lingering in places you least expect. The next time you hear a noise in the dark, or the air feels just a little bit colder, ask yourself, was it just your mind playing tricks? Or was it one of the stories you heard tonight reaching out for you? The places we talked about, the ones where shadows hide just out of sight, they still exist, waiting to be discovered again. And there are countless more just like them. Things no one wants to confront, but everyone wants to know about. So, if you're ready to uncover more, subscribe, because we'll be back soon. And this time, we might just be knocking on the door.